The Committee on Parole is reconvening at Louisiana State Penitentiary. Time is 10:49 a.m. Would the offender please introduce yourself and give us your Department of Corrections ID?
My name is James Bradley, 322205.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. My name is Alvin Roche. To my left is Mr. Pete Freeman, and to my right is Mrs. Bonnie Jackson. We'll compose your roll call this morning, and let me explain the process to you. I will read some information into the record. Once that information is in the record, we'll conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we'll allow people in support and people in opposition to your early release a chance to make a statement. And I think with your attorney's approval, she will close out the hearing and give the final statement in your behalf. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you please, attorney, would you please introduce yourself for the record?
Good morning, board. My name is Adrienne Hutchison. I'm an attorney with the Louisiana Parole Project here on behalf of Mr. James Bradley. And yes, sir, I'd like to reserve my comments for the end.
Thank you, Attorney Hutchinson. In support of your early release, we have Mr. Karen Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project, Mr. Andrew Huntley, and Ms. Megan Netzer. Is that correct?
Snedeker.
Snedeker, okay. And Ms. Snedeker is going to speak, and Mr. Karen Myers is going to speak. In opposition, we have present the victim assistant coordinator, Mr. George Dose. He will not be speaking. Mr. Andy Kuhn, the son-in-law of the victim, will not be speaking. Ms. Patient Kuhn, the daughter of the victim, will not be speaking. Mr. Ronnie Former, the son of the victim, he will be speaking. Ms. Martha Austin, the daughter of the victim, will be speaking. And Mr. Roger Former, the son of the victim, will be speaking. After all of those persons have made their statement, we'll give you a chance to make a brief statement before we vote, and your attorney will make the closing statement before we vote. Do you understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bradley, you are a second felony offender. Your offenses are in 2017 when you got resentenced with the benefit of parole for second-degree murder, and you received a life sentence originally, but in 2017, that life sentence without benefits was resentenced to life with benefit. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
As a part of the juvenile life enacted by the state of Louisiana. In 2000, you were sentenced to 5 years to run consecutively for simple escape type 1. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You are what we call a Miller case. You were sentenced to life without benefits before your 18th birthday. Your parole date is April 17, 2018, and you've been eligible for parole for the last 5 years. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna get to why this is your first parole hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we'll get to the reason why it's been 5 years before you were eligible for a parole hearing. Because under the statute, Louisiana statute, you were eligible for parole at 25 years. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
But now you've served 31 and a half years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So now your case has been assigned to me. So first of all, we're going to talk about your program. What kind of programs have you completed in your 31 years of incarceration?
I have completed RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, which is provided by the Behavior Management Program. I've taken Thinking for a Change, Moral Compass, 100 Hours Pre-Release, Reevaluation Counseling, Alternatives to Violence Program. I've done AANA, Lifestyle and Balance, Cage Your Rage. I've taken Tapuku.
Tell everybody what Tabuco is.
Tapuku is a class about internal and external motivation. It stands for the only person you cheat is yourself.
Okay, go ahead.
It deals with rational thinking, surrounding yourself with positive people who are doing positive things, who think like-minded, who are going in the same directions that you are going in.
Now, any other programs?
There's various ones I've taken with the Kisatchie JCs when I was at Wade, as far as like Speak Up.
So you've had a lot of programs,
Yes, sir.
including behavioral management program that you finished in 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So tell me what your job assignment is at Louisiana State Penitentiary.
Currently, I'm an honorary mentor in the behavior management program.
Okay. And how long have you had that job?
For right at 3 years.
Okay. Are you a trustee?
No, sir.
And we're going to get to the reason why you're not a trustee a little bit later. Okay. So now, for the record, in detail, tell us how and why you murdered Mr. James Former, and stole his car. Tell us why you felt that it was necessary to viciously murder a man to steal his car.
On January 14, 1992, I had been drinking and doing various drugs I took some Xanax,
And you,
Valium.
and you were 16 years old,
Yes, sir.
and you were drunk, and you were
Yes,
a
sir.
drug addict.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And I had went to like a paranoid state. I just felt like I had to get out of Monroe. I had to leave. And I was sitting on the front porch of my house, and I turned and my neighbor came out, and he waved at me, and he picked up like a piece of mail or of paper. And that instant that he did that, it rang in my mind that I thought he was gonna call the police on me. Call the police on me for what? I didn't know. I couldn't figure it out. And he went back into his house, and I had a Ruger Target 222 pistol that I got from out of one of my dad's gun cases. And I went over to his house and I knocked on the door. And then when he let me in, he offered me a soda. And I told him no, that I was good. And he had sat down. And it was like he had just got through bathing his dog because he had a hair dryer. And as he sat back down, I walked past him and I pulled the gun out and I shot him. And once I shot him, the instant I did it, I realized that, man, I had messed up so bad that everything, it was like I had sobered up in one instance and I got scared. And I just ran out the house. And when I ran out the house, I saw his car right there. And I was like, I know I got to get away. I can't. So I ran back in the house and I saw the keys hanging on a key ring holder. And I grabbed them and I ran off in the car. And I know I made some terrible choices. That's what happened.
Mr. Bradley, at that point in life, had you had a mental health evaluation?
No, sir.
So you were not aware of any mental health issues that you had?
No, sir.
So you just snapped that instant,
Yes, sir.
and your mind told you Mr. James was just gonna call the police on you.
Yes, sir.
I want to just give you some idea of the opposition that you have in this case. We contacted various members of the legal community, and the district attorney in the 4th JDC in Monroe, Louisiana, is opposed to your early release. The district attorney's office in the 2nd JDC in Homer, Louisiana, is opposed to your release. The sheriff's office in Monroe, Louisiana, is strongly opposed to your early release. The sheriff's office in Claiborne Parish is opposed to your release. Chief of Police of Monroe, strongly opposed to your release. And the Chief of Police in West Monroe is opposed to your release. That's every law enforcement and DA's office in a 2-parish area has responded to our request for comment and has sent statements or letters in adamant opposition to your early release. Needless to say that the victim's family is united in their opposition to your release. And we have heard from Mrs. Dolly Sellers, who is not a blood relative, but Ms. Sellers is a young lady when she was a teenager that she was in need and needed some place to stay, needed a place that she could find a good meal. And Mr. Farmer took her in and gave her shelter and raised her until she was able to take care of herself. And she wrote a letter in opposition. We have a letter from his granddaughter, Kim. We have a letter from another granddaughter, Miss Lisa Lewis. We have a letter from Miss Martha Austin, a daughter of the victim. We have a letter from Mary Jo Lewis, another daughter of Mr. James. We have a letter from Megan Cannon, a great-granddaughter who he never met, and she never met her great-grandfather. Needless to say, I can go on. There's another 8 to 10 letters, but the whole family is in adamant opposition to your early release. And Mr. Ronnie, former, and another, Mr. Roger Former will give us statements at the appropriate time. And I'm just going through the letters, and the letters are, there are multiple letters to the tune of maybe 10 or 15 family members found it necessary to reply to our response because they are still physically, mentally, and emotionally affected by the crime that you committed. Now, just give me a second, Mr. Bradley. I want to get to your last progress report. I see that you have a GED. When did you get your GED?
In November of 1992.
Okay, so you got your GED after you were incarcerated.
Yes, sir.
You have a low risk assessment, and you had tremendous amount of programs. So I won't even start to re-mention the ones you've mentioned already. But I see that you've been a member of the JCs since 1998. Are you still a member?
No, sir.
Tell us about your activities with the JC.
While I was involved with the JCs, I was actually the membership vice president, where I conducted the MAP program, which is the member activation program, where there I worked hand in hand with several other of the vice presidents, from Matthew Pineda to Brian Widenhouse, and we would conduct projects on running CPG training seminars, teaching guys how to write out CPGs, how to run projects, speak up contests, and various projects.
Yeah. Any other organizational participation?
Sir, excuse me?
Any other organizations that you participated in?
Behavior management program.
I was talking about Toastmasters, Veterans Club.
Oh, no, sir.
Now, you've been eligible for parole since 2018.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why you hadn't come up for parole before now?
Yes, sir, because I made some bad choices and I got a write-up, and it set me back.
You just didn't get a write-up, you got multiple write-ups.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me tell you, Mr. Bradley, and I'm gonna be very honest with you. I've heard at least 15, 20, 25, 30 Miller cases and Graham cases. What I look for when I'm dealing with a juvenile lifer is maturity. Be able to make good decisions. And I look for rehabilitation. And when I read the list of programs that you completed, I was amazed. It was impressive. But when I look at your disciplinary record, none of those programs did you any good. Let me read some notes I have. Since 2012, approximately 10 years ago, you've had 22 disciplinary write-ups. All of those write-ups were Class B write-ups. You had 9 contrabands, 4 intoxications, 3 aggravated disobedience, 1 sex offense, an aggravated work offense, and a theft, and a fight, and a 30W. What was a 30W for?
That was for I was involved in with forging scam.
What would you repeat?
I was forging signatures.
You was forging signatures in prison.
Yes, sir.
And you were sent to segregated quarters, right?
Yes, sir.
Now let's go back 4 more years. Let's go back 4 more years. And you have an additional 7 write-ups for contraband, another sex offense, and destruction of state property, a defiance. Between the ages of 33 and 45, you had 33 Class B write-ups. I may be off 1 or 2, but I counted 33 Class B write-ups between the ages of 33 and 45, when I assume that you had gained maturity enough to make the right decisions. And with all the programs that I see, also expected some rehabilitation. But a rehabilitated person does not have 33 write-ups in the last 12 years. To boot, the last 2 write-ups were in September of 2021, not even 2 years ago. Those are for contraband and intoxication. What was intoxication for?
Methamphetamine.
So you're using meth in 2021, and you're supposed to be mature, and you're supposed to be rehabilitated. I don't think so. Mr. Bradley, I need to see 3 to 5 years where you show maturity and rehabilitation. And the only way you can do that is to follow the institution's policies, rules, and regulations. You make it a regular habit of not doing that. And it shows your immaturity in a light of rehabilitation. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You were intoxicated on meth less than 2 years ago and got a contraband write-up. You need to take a hold of your situation, your life, and decide whether or not you want to ever be released from the Louisiana State Penitentiary. It's in your court. It's in your ball field. You have to make the right decisions and show your maturity and your rehabilitation. Juan Falgo, would you like to comment? Do you have any observations or concerns?
Yes, sir. What I can add to James is you're thorough on your interview and the history in his record. He has been a participant in our behavioral management dormitory. He is doing better in that respect. He is still living at Camp C in Wolf. He does have a job as a painter. He is at this point, I think, turning a corner. We have expanded our drug rehabilitation, our substance use disorder programming. I'm hoping that he will continue to benefit from that moving forward. So with that being said, I think we're moving in the right direction. He has had programming in the past. We're going to continue to move forward with continued programming with him in hopes that his sobriety and making those right decisions, as you're saying, will continue as well.
And it would bother me, Warden. I think all the other write-ups I could have overlooked, but the write-ups in 2021 for intoxication and contraband was a year after he completed the behavioral management program.
Correct. And since then, he has come back he has completed that program.
Yeah, he completed it in 2020, am I correct?
Correct. Ms. Butler actually is here right now.
If you don't
Yes.
I'll move up here.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So, I have been,
Camera back.
am I behind him?
Yeah, just move the camera back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Technology, Mr. Roche, technology.
Oh, yes, it's wonderful when it works.
Correct.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Angela Butler with the Behavior Management Program.
Yes, ma'am.
James was currently participating in the program when I took responsibility of the program nearly 3 years ago. I am the writer of that write-up, his last write-up. I started to notice a change in James, and James is very active in his community. He's a painter. Our dormitory is beautiful. We have murals throughout the camp. He is a pause trainer, where he trains canine. And when I started to see that change in James, I had the coordinator approach him and speak with him and confront him about his change. And I still didn't notice any improvement in James, so I had him drug tested, where he tested positive for methamphetamine. From that time, I put him back in the program. I made it, he was functioning as an honorary mentor, a janitor there in the dorm. Since then, he completed the program again. He's been an honorary mentor. He's a facilitator. He facilitates nurturing creative skills. He teaches guys struggling to use art, different types of art, to intervene with their addictions, learn how to do other things rather than drugs. As I said, he's currently a trainer for the dog that lives in our dorm, Boomer. James, he has painted the cell block units at Camp C, where the warden spoke about us expanding the drug programming here in the facility. I've seen huge change in James over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Yes, sir.
And that. Okay, and thank you, Ms. Butler, but I still need to see that maturity and that rehabilitation over a period of 3 to 5 years before I even consider voting for Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, Mr. Roche, we're hearing what you're saying, and we are also in agreement with that from my perspective. We do know that we're taking further action from the substance use disorder angle. We're opening dormitories right now. We're doing a lot of things to help further the ability for offenders such as James to be able to continue the sobriety and continue to add tools to his toolbox moving forward to be able to fight and maintain his sobriety.
Warden Falco, with my 8-year relationship with Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary, I have no doubt that you're doing everything possible to make the offender's experience at Angola one that will be serve him well after he's released. And I know you have budgetary restraints, but I know you're doing as much as you can to improve the environment.
James, since that last write-up has been showing us rather than telling us. So with that being said, yes, for him to continue to show us, as you're saying, for the next few years to prove himself to you and the board that he would come to at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Bradley, earlier you stated that you saw him bend over and he picked up some mail and you thought he had a gun, correct?
No,
So
sir.
he was gonna call police.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you killed him and you took his car. What did you do after you took his car?
I drove to Magnolia, Arkansas.
You didn't stop by some friend's house first?
Excuse me.
Oh, yes, sir.
Man,
Oh, please, the audience, remain silent, please. No comments, no gestures, please.
I'm sorry, so did you stop by some friend's house first?
Yes, sir, I did.
At which time you did admit to one of them you had killed, Mr. Fuller, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's just kind of funny if you were that paranoid that you would stop. I would, the first statement going straight to Arkansas made a little bit more sense. And other than that, I'll reserve my comments to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. Jackson.
No, Mr. Bradley, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. At this time, we'll hear from the support, Mr. Karen Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project.
Good morning, Terry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. As this board is well aware, Parole Project is committed to assisting particular juvenile lives. We want to let the board know that should the board grant Mr. Bradley today, Parole Project is prepared to offer our services to Mr. Bradley. That means he will go through our program. We do have a very detailed plan for him should he be granted today. And you'll hear that further from Senator from our social worker as she speaks. We all, want to again let the board know that we are committed to assisting you particularly.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We hear from Megan Snedeker, social worker with the Louisiana Parole Project.
Good morning, honorable members of the board, and thank you for the opportunity to let me speak today. My name is Megan Snedeker. I am a licensed master social worker with Louisiana Parole Project. I recently met with Mr. Bradley and administered a substance abuse evaluation in order to determine the substance abuse treatment needs if he were to be granted release today. Mr. Bradley at this time has been assessed and deemed appropriate for inpatient treatment services at Capital Area Recovery Program here in Baton Rouge. At this time, he's already been accepted into that program. If he were granted parole today, he would report to that program the day he is released from the institution in order to begin 28 days of an inpatient substance abuse treatment program. That program integrates behavioral health, mental health to deal with substance abuse disorders. If Mr. Bradley does get granted today and he reports to Capital Area Recovery Program, they would keep me updated, us at Parole Project updated with the client's status with the program, whether he separates from them by successful completion or if he discharges himself against staff advice. Once he completes that 28-day inpatient program, Capital Area Recovery Program will link him with aftercare substance abuse treatment. That can look like outpatient services, intensive outpatient services, that can look like self-help groups or support groups as well, substance abuse counseling. And so once he is released from that treatment, he will begin his stay with Louisiana Parole Project. During that time, I plan to assist him in creating and implementing a sobriety plan, as well as attending AA meetings or NA meetings, and identifying and communicating with a sponsor. In addition, Louisiana Parole Project will provide Mr. Bradley with any transportation that to any recommended substance abuse aftercare services. And we will ensure that Mr. Bradley has the tools to comply with all recommendations set forth by any clinicians and also the conditions of his parole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Snedeker. At this time, we'll hear from the opposition. I'm gonna let Ronnie and Ms. Martha and Roger decide who's gonna go first. And Roger. Give us your full name and your relationship to the victim.
My name is Rod Boomer, or JD, James Boomer from my daddy. My daddy was a good man. He would get his shirt off his back. This young man come into his house with his pistol, shot him in the back of the head. And some of the things that he told you was the truth. Some of them wasn't complete. Not saying that he lied. It wasn't complete or what he done. So we know that. He stole my daddy's car, drove to Arkansas, you know. Was it planned? I think it was. I think he had planned this, you know, this is my opinion. His own daddy was the one that turned him in for having committed a crime. You know, we went through this ordeal back there in 2092, and you know, working with the district attorney, we agreed that we would take a lesser crime, but a complete life in prison without parole sentence. Understand now the laws have changed, but our stand is that we let him live at that time because of not wanting to take his life. You know, we, a family, agreed to second-degree murder with this life in prison without parole, and you know that's what we would really like to see without parole.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Ms. Martha, would you please give us your full name and your relationship to the victim?
My name is Martha Jane Hudson. I'm the daughter of James Dixon. I don't agree with my brother. Some of the things he said were right. And some of it, were a little bit more, different story. But his daddy turned him in because when in '92 that we got psychiatrists to go over everything to make sure that he was in sound mind. The two psychologists said that he was in sound mind and that he knew exactly what he was doing when he did it. And he had been planning to kill somebody for a while because his daddy said that he had been shooting in the house and shooting around and said, no, his daddy. And his daddy would take guns away from him and said that when he found, when he got ready to kill the person he was going to kill, that he was going to find the gun. He stole money from my daddy out of his pocket. He went to the mall where I worked after he killed daddy. As far as him getting released, I think he would be bad for the society. I think that he's not ready to be looked back in society. I know the psychiatrist said that the judge asked him, said, "Do you want this gentleman living beside you?" He said, "No, I sure wouldn't." He never showed any remorse. I mean, he was cocky on the stand. He never looked at us and said, "I'm sorry for the family I killed your dad." There was nothing ever. He showed nothing. I mean, no sadness, no remorse, nothing. And he took my daddy's money. And my daddy was in good health, good man, raised 7 children. And he just didn't have the life to take somebody's life. Whether he was on drugs or whatever, it's not life. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Martha. Mr. Riley? Give us your full name and relationship to the victim.
Okay, my full name is Ronald Lynn Fulmer. I am the youngest son, Jay People. Thank you for giving me the time to address y'all. Like my brother had said earlier, when I went to school, repetition is how you learn. Repetition is what you learn. And as we can see, as you have read to us, his repetition is already showing us that he's not ready to go anywhere. He's where he needs to be. He took something from me that he don't really understand what he took. He had a friend, like, he don't know what kind of friend he really had in my day. You know why? Because he never tried to learn what kind of friend. Oh, he knew he was an old man, and he knew he was good, for him to open the door and let you, off your soda, come in there, and then, So my point is this. This is what I want to say, and I say this with my heart, and with all respect. I'm tired of the wound being opened up over and over. I understand he did something at a young age. I myself was at that same age. I didn't do that. I had the same circumstances he had. And the same choices to make. But I had somebody in my corner. That's what father. He made me work by his side, we talking things. Nobody is And he took him from me. For just a ride, a good time. So I'm tired. This keeps coming up in my life. I thought we had buried this when we gave him a second chance for life instead of trying to take his life in 92. But as we can see, we're still victims of what we do. Because the wound keeps getting opened up. Because of leaks. And we gave him what we felt at that time. And we still stand behind to this day. It's life in prison without pardon or parole. Simply because we give him a second chance, something he would, my father wouldn't get.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer. Thank you. Mr. Bradley, would you like to give us a closing statement?
Yes, sir. First off, thank you for giving me this opportunity today. Throughout my incarceration, when I first was locked up and I came to DOC, knowing what I had done was wrong, that I could never ever repay that debt, that I felt like I deserved to be here. It sent me down a real long path where I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about anything. And it took me a long time. I kept trying, going through programs, taking classes, trying to find something, anything I could grab a hold of. And then finally in 19, I found it. I went to Cairo. And a bunch of kids who didn't even know me sent me letters telling me how they forgive me and how they love me. And that opened me up. That really let me know I needed to change my ways and change my life. And that's where my beginning started. Right there. That's where I really started to change. You know, and care about myself and care about other people and had a desire to help other people and help myself. It just took me a little while after that to get rid of a lot of those old bad habits that I had. I can tell you one thing for certain, sir. I'm not that same child I was no more. The remorse I feel for the former family and my victim, that's something that lives with me every day. The pain I've caused my own family lives with me every day. You know, I just know I'm not that same person. I know that if I am granted release, I will change the lives of people that once wore those shoes that I once wore. I will make a difference in the world. I will be a productive member of whichever society I go into. I will make changes, and I will continue to do so. And I thank y'all for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Counselor?
Thank you, Board. Mr. Bradley's been incarcerated for roughly 31 years. And like he said, he acknowledges when he entered prison, he struggled with the idea of spending the rest of his life here. At 16 years old, when Mr. Bradley committed this crime and entered prison, he was an active drug user of over 10 years. And his behavior and conduct during that time reflected the crisis in his life. And he didn't start out as a willing participant in using drugs, as it was stated in the brief. But he does take accountability for taking Mr. Fulmer's life. And he's remorseful and regretful for his actions. As he admitted, the programming, and you noted the programming early on, looks like it didn't stick. And as he stated, it had to do with his self-worth and him feeling like he deserved to be here in a miserable life. And in 2019, when he took the Kairos program and he wanted to turn his life around, even in our conversations, he admits that life without drugs was frightening. It had been the most consistent thing in his life. But I think him willing to take programming over and over until it works shows that he's ready to make a change, even when it was uncomfortable. We didn't go much into it, but he's found his purpose. Working with the behavior management program, facilitating that program. He's worked with Vote to create a cognitive behavior brochure for juveniles. Like, this is something he's never thought of before. A facilitator for nurturing creative skills, like initiating that program to bring art and plays into the facility to help these guys work on correcting their thinking and replacing the negative behavior with positive work. He's worked on long and short-term goals. This is something you never would have heard from him 5 or 10 years ago. Using the behavior, the emotional support dog in the dorm. He's a helper now. He picks up people around him. Mr. Bradley is 47 years old now. Completely different person from the 16-year-old child that came into prison. He has a purpose. He's made amazing progress. And we strongly believe that now is the time to build on that work. If he's granted parole, he'd go into a 28-day program that would hold him accountable and set him up for success in society, providing both substance abuse and mental health treatment. And he'd work closely with the parole project and our social worker to make sure that he stays on track. He has the commitment of the Louisiana Parole Project. His family and friends will provide housing and support if he's given the opportunity. And so I know you wanted 3 to 5 years of maturity and rehabilitation, but I think that we can complete that outside of prison if the board sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is the panel ready to vote? Mr. Bradley, you're 47 years old. And I think about a year ago, you started to turn the corner. As Warren Feldman said, I think the lights come on. But as a juvenile lifer, the court has addressed our responsibility as a parole board. We must look for full maturity and rehabilitation. The federal court said that we cannot use opposition either from the victim's family or the legal community to deny a juvenile life. But Mr. Bradley's disciplinary conduct in the last 12 to 14 years has been totally unacceptable. Even after programming, even after behavioral management, which he completed in 2020, he a lack of maturity and rehabilitation, a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable based upon the entire legal community is strongly opposed. And lastly, the adamant opposition from the entire victim's family. I see no other choice but to deny your request for early release. But don't let this be a hindrance to your incarceration. Use it as a catalyst to continue doing what you've been doing for the last 6 to 12 months You'll be eligible for parole, hopefully in another year. And then maybe, just maybe, a parole board can say, Mr. Bradley, you have performed well, you've had no disciplinary write-ups for 3 to 4 years. You've got good programs. You've got good community service. You are a mentee in a behavioral management program. And then just maybe you can get the taste of freedom, but not today. Ms. Jackson.
First to the former family, I appreciate you all being here and appreciate your input. It helps inform my decisions, so thank you for being here. And also, Mr. Myers-Reed and your staff, thank you also. Mr. Bradley, you're only 47 years old. And I can say that because I'm quite a bit older than that, so you're still a young man. And you still have the opportunity to, for one day, be released. And I think that that is going to happen at some point in the future. You were 16 years old when you committed this crime. I don't know all the circumstances around your mental health issues or what, but you've essentially grown up in prison. And I will suggest to you that sometimes being out is more difficult than being in, because you lack the structure and the routine and the guardrails that keep us on track. And I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult the adjustment is after you have spent over 30 years in prison, going in as a teenager. I think a lot of people underestimate the difficulty of making that transition, even with the support of people like the Parole Project. It's just a whole different situation. And so before I would feel comfortable voting to let you out, I have to feel convinced that you have tools that you need to be successful. And I think substance abuse has been an issue for you for a very long time. It remained an issue for you within the institution. And I'll tell you that, as you thought it was easy to get meth in prison, it's a whole lot easier to get it on the street. I just think you need to make some more progress in your recovery. I agree with Warden Falvu that there's some more work that needs to be done. So because of your disciplinary record and your need for additional substance abuse programming, my vote today is to deny. But don't take that as an absolute. Just say not yet, and then recognize that there's some things you do before you appear before a board again. My vote today is.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Freeman.
Okay, quite obviously, the light is not come. Hadn't come on at all to me. I mean, you've had all these programs knowing that if you could stay right up free, you would have a chance for your freedom, yet you still chose to go back to drugs, no matter what programs you take. Your lawyer says, well, he's going to continue to take them until he gets it. Well, hopefully sooner or later you get it, but it don't look like sooner to me. I think you need a long-term treatment program. I think a 28 program would be a joke. I don't think it would do you any good whatsoever. I think you need long-term treatment. I think you need something like a STAR program. And then we can revisit this. I also want to thank the families for showing up and the Parole Project for putting their efforts into it. My vote is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Before I render the final decision, I'd like to thank the victim's family. I know you've traveled a long distance, and I know this has been traumatic for you, but your input was essential to us making a decision, and we appreciate it. Mr. Bradley, you have received 3 votes to deny your request. Your request for early release has been denied. You have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, board.
Mr. Freeman with the mic drop. Not every day we see Mr. Freeman do that. You know, he didn't exactly drop his microphone, but he did take a sip from his sippy cup, which was you know, he finished saying his statement and then he's like I'm sorry to laugh, but I wasn't expecting that for Mr. Freeman. He's normally just but he's been on a roll lately. I gotta say, I mean, he really took the words out of my mouth. I'm like, everyone's saying, "Oh, you turned the corner," and the idea that his attorney from the parole project would even suggest a 28-day program. He's just spent basically his entire life in prison taking programs. Oh, now you should get him out and put him in a 28-day program. That's going to really solve it. Like Mr. Freeman said, this man had freedom in his grasp. It wasn't like those scenarios where people were locked up and they didn't know that they would ever have a chance at freedom. So they were doing things and then no, here he knew. It was all, this is not a commutation hearing. This is a parole hearing. His life sentence was reversed because of the law, because he was 16. He was given a right. He knew that he would have a chance of parole, and yet he decided to do meth. He had a job where he would paint murals, and his boss was like noticing something's up. Something's up. So she got him tested, which makes you think it wasn't even like he did it one time. No, he was doing it and doing it and doing it. I mean, he was habitually doing it, is what it seemed like from the story. Next thing is that I know you're not supposed to judge books by their cover, but this is more than just a book, right? This is someone who did something that is scary, and this dude looks scary. I mean, he's sitting there like you wonder if there's anything inside. Is there a life inside there? Is there a soul? Is there like, it's like this expressionless face. They asked the therapist way back when, the judge asked the psychiatrist way back when, would you want him living near you? And she said no. I think she'd answer the same thing today. I mean, it's scary. Imagine you pull up and there's this man like emotionless. Terrifying. I don't know. Then they talk about how he's so great because of his mural paintings and because of his dog work. I was like, who wouldn't? You're in prison. Who wouldn't want to work with a dog? I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? I hate when they talk that up like it's a good thing. It's like, what? So you mean maybe you are human? Maybe there is a soul in there. Like maybe there is something that can feel empathy. Maybe that's what they're talking about because he likes to hang out with the dog. God, I don't know. There are, he was 16. He did some crazy crime. I'm all for him getting out. But like Mr. Freeman said, from seeing this, is just there was nothing there. That actually would make me feel like he would get out and succeed in society. Not to commit crimes back in society, not to, I mean, he was being dishonest when he repeated, the victims themselves said that he was being dishonest when he repeated what he did. Unfortunately, this appeal that I have, because now he pled guilty, so what he was appealing was his sentence. This was later on that this appeal comes in, right? This is in, when was this? this is not, this is like later on, but anyways, it doesn't say enough. There is something interesting it says in here, but basically, this was in 1990. Well, pled guilty in 93, and that he was sentenced to life imprisonment with the benefit of parole. Bradley filed a motion to reconsider, which was denied. Bradley now appeals. Right. He was sentenced to the statutory mandated sentence of life imprisonment and hard labor without the benefit of probation and parole or suspended sentence. The trial court vacated Bradley's original sentence and resentenced him to life imprisonment with the benefit of parole. This is because of the law that said it was unconstitutional or to lock up someone who was 16 or inhumane. I don't remember the exact words. Bradley filed a motion to reconsider, which was denied. Bradley now appeals the sentence for the following reasons. So this is what it says he did. On January 14, 1992, James Fulmer was shot and killed while sitting at his dining room table. Bradley, who was 16 years old at the time, was charged with it. Bradley pled guilty to the second degree. He was subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment, hard labor, without the benefit of probation, suspension, or sentence. He didn't go to trial. He just pled because he didn't want the DEATH penalty. On June 9th, 2013, Bradley filed a motion to, so this is now in 2013, he filed a motion to correct an illegal sentence. Bradley argued that his mandatory life without sentence was illegal under the Miller v. Alabama because he was a juvenile at the time he committed the crime. The state responded at the time of the filing of the application, post-conviction relief, blah, 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 retroactive. Hold on one second. It's been a long summer. The kids are home all day, and it makes recording the whole different world. I'll tell you that. But it's been fun. I am very blessed. Anyways, what was funny, I thought it was funny, is that they ended up giving him a new sentence, and they made a mistake. They said Bradley was originally sentenced to life imprisonment at hard labor without benefits. And then in the resentencing, they gave him life imprisonment with benefit of parole. Okay, so what did they miss? They forgot the minutes that he was sentenced in life imprisonment at hard labor with the benefit of parole. So in the resentencing, they forgot the words at hard labor. So they were not happy about this, and they had to legally rewrite it so that it would say the trial court's resentencing of Bradley was too lenient as it failed to include the requirement of Bradley's life imprisonment to be served at hard labor. So it's like in his appeal, they came back at him, I think, and said, oh, not only are you denied, but we're going to make sure that we add those words into this. So you have to go to hard labor, which apparently is drawing on walls and playing with dogs, but that's a different subject. Labor is harmless of self-correcting. Bradley's life sentence is hereby amended to reflect that it to be served at hard labor in accordance with Louisiana. For foregoing reasons, Bradley's sentence is affirmed. His life sentence is amended to reflect that it is to be served at hard labor. I'm sorry, I don't know why I find that to be funny. I'm not laughing. It's just like, someone, you know, it's all strange how it works anyways. It's not, and I'm not saying they should all be sitting there working hard labor, like, you know, just for the sake of punishment. And some of them do have to do some really hard work. But he's apparently an artist making murals and playing with dogs. So, and but can you imagine? I'm sure he has lived a terrible life, and he has paid for his crimes for years. I am sure, being a 16-year-old boy and finding yourself in Angola. You don't need that much of an imagination to know what he's been through. I'm not even going to say probably. This is 1992. So, I'm sure he's paid many times over. But, you know, what you just can't get is like there's no clarity as to why he did it. He claims that he's sitting there and he saw the man come out and he thought he would call the cops on him, so he went inside his house and he just put one in his head, and then at that point he was sobered up, and so he stole his car and drove to a different state. And you know, the family was like, he's lying, you know, that's not at all how it happened. But you know, the drama to it, where he said the man actually offered him a soda. And the excuse is so pathetic. So let's say he was going to call the cops. Great. Like, so now you're going to take his, like, there's something missing there. Like, even all these years later, that's the story you come up with. You thought he was going to call the cops. So you went there with a gun and shot him. They mentioned something that he had been on narcotics for 10 years, which would have meant he was on it since he was 6 years old. If that's true, I mean, that could just be the answer then that we need, which is he's been just totally messed up his whole life. I mean, his brain is just warped. But he took the money from his pocket. He took his car. You know, I think the family is more like saying that it was planned. He just wanted his money and car, and so he did it. But you know, I do connect with what Mr. Freeman said, and I thought Mr. Riche was being a little bit too nice. You know, just you'll apply in a year from now, and maybe by then they'll be. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't, especially with the family having to go through this every year, is like, at what point is it too much? The family's going to have to go through this again and again and again. And you know, the idea that someone who's 16 commits a crime shouldn't be in prison for life, I do like that. We have seen in most cases, it feels like when they get out, like that they've earned it, and you kind of feel good about it. I wouldn't feel good about this one. I really wouldn't. It's scary to me. There's just something that's scary. But that's just me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And with that, I'll let you go.